Major trigger warning for the next two stories. These stories are quite tragic. I'm going to start out with this story about women being kept as slaves so they can harvest their eggs. Then I'm going to come over to this tragic story of hundreds of women being raped and set on fire. I do completely understand if you need to scroll away from this because these next two stories are quite tragic. Modern day slavery. Yes, it's still going on globally. Women kept as slaves on human egg farm. 100 victims are fed hormones and treated like cattle. Their horrifying ordeal has been revealed by three Thai women who were freed from the clutches of the egg mafia on January 30th after being exploited for half a year, tabloid Bild reports. The woman said they were held captive on a human farm in the Eastern European country of Georgia by a criminal organization led by Chinese criminals who sold their eggs on the black market. They were lured by a job offer on Facebook promising them a salary of 11,500 and 17,000 euros to work as surrogates for Georgian couples who could not have children. The trio traveled to Georgia in August 2024 alongside 10 other Thai women. Their expenses for the journey, as well as their passport applications, were paid for by the organization, with a female employee organizing their travel. But once they arrived, they were housed in four large properties with around 100 other women and realized the job offer was just a front. Instead, the women were pumped up with hormones to stimulate their ovaries and were forced to have their eggs removed once a month, one of the freed women told a press conference this week. She said they were treated like cattle and that some of the women did not even receive any compensation for their eggs. If they asked their captors to leave, they were told they had to fork out 2,000 euros for the farm owners first. One former slave who worked on the egg farm bought her freedom and alerted Pavana Hong Sakula, founder of a Thai foundation for children and women. The woman told Miss Pavana that several other Thai women were still held as slaves at the farm as they could not afford to pay for their release. The eggs collected from the women are understood to have been sold, trafficked in other countries for use in vitro fertilization. Ms. Pavana said at this week's press conference, according to the Bangkok Post. The Pavana Foundation collaborated with Interpol and managed to free three Thai women released on January 30th after paying the ransom. It's not known how many women are still being held on the human farm. Okay, so now I'm going to this very tragic story right here that I had told you about earlier. Hundreds of women raped and burned to death after Goma prison set on fire. Hundreds of women were raped and burned alive during the chaos after a Rwandan black-backed rebel group entered the Congolese city of Goma last week. The female inmates were attacked in their wing inside Goma Munzinzi prison during a mass jailbreak, according to a senior UN official. The deputy head of the UN peacekeeping force based in Goma, Vivian van de Peer, said that while several thousand men managed to escape from the prison, the area reserved for women was set on fire. Images taken shortly after the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels reached the center of Goma reveal vast plumes of black smoke rising from the prison on the morning of January 27th. Although details of the incident are scarce, the atrocity appears to be the worst of the recent M23-led conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. UN peacekeepers, however, have been unable to visit the prison to investigate further because of restrictions imposed by the M23 rebels, meaning the identity of the perpetrators remains unclear. On Tuesday, it emerged that about 2,000 bodies were still awaiting burial in Goma after M23 fighters seized Goma, the capital of the DRC's North Kivu province, on the 27th of January. Van de Peer, who is now based in Goma with thousands of UN peacekeeping troops deployed to protect citizens, said there was a major prison outbreak of 4,000 escaped prisoners. A few hundred women were also in that prison. They were all raped and then set on fire. They set fire to the women's wing. They all died afterwards. This week, the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights warned that actual violence was being used as a weapon of war by rival armed groups in Goma. The city, home to more than 1 million people, is under total control of M23 forces. But an unforeseen development late on Monday, the militia announced a unilateral ceasefire. Until then, fears had been mounting that Rwanda was determined to take more territory from its vast neighbor, with M23 forces steadily heading south towards Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu province, 120 miles from Goma. A statement from a political military coalition called the Alliance Fleuve Congo, of which M23 is a member, announced it had no intention of taking control of Bukavu or other localities. If they retreat, that's good news. Otherwise, we'll have a new clash of potentially thousands of additional deaths, she said. M23 may have a sudden rethink after reinforcements from Burundi arrived in Bukavu and a nearby airport was used by Congolese Air Force. The Burundians have sent 2,000 extra troops to Bukavu, and they are very good fighters. I think M23 is currently rethinking their next steps. Despite evidence to the contrary, Rwanda denies it is backing the M23 or that its forces have crossed into eastern Congo. However, Van der Beer, part of the UN peacekeeping force known as MONUSCO, said her colleagues had spotted Rwandan soldiers during patrol. Van der Beer urged the UN Security Council to increase the pressure on Rwanda. We really need to get back to the negotiating table, and that is only possible if the members of the Security Council and other important countries exert enough pressure on Rwanda and Congo. Previously, another senior UN official had speculated that the DRC's neighbor wanted to annex a chunk of the DRC larger than Rwanda itself. This is a long-term policy to get the broader Kivu area into the sphere of Rwandan influence and later under complete administrative control. Speaking before the ceasefire was announced late on Monday, Van der Peer said she was anxious about reports that groups were preparing for a counterattack. We already have reports that in certain places people are gathering and organizing. Van der Peer says she was in constant dialogue with M23 officers in charge of Goma and that humanitarian conditions in the city were dire. Crossing the city was difficult, she said. They, the M23, allow us to bring food and water to our bases, but apart from that, we can barely move around. Women and girls globally are not safe. All of these areas that have so much violence, women and children they're used for war fodder. They're used as a weapon. And what is going on globally is not highlighted enough. We got human trafficking. We got basically trafficking. We have women and girls basically being sold off in child marriages. And you see how gRape and violence and setting people on fire is just another act of war. The global patriarchy, the global toxicity that sees women's bodies as disposable or resources to be used and colonized like men are just able to do. It's horrifying. It's horrifying what women and children have to go through at the hands of these people. Anyways, please share these stories. I know it is challenging to hear and see these stories. I get it. But we need to be making more effort to put this out there, because if we're not, where are women and girls safe? And this is by no fault of their own being born in these war-torn areas, or like the Thai women looking to take a job and then getting basically put into slavery. Join the conversation, share these difficult stories, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.